So the Oscars happened a couple days ago. Needless to say, they were very interesting, and I'm just going to discuss them a little bit. We have other topics as well we're going to go over, but we're going to kick it off with the Oscars. Just my overall general thoughts. I didn't really enjoy this year's Oscars very much, but not for any of the reasons that had to do with the winners. I had no problem with the winners, no problem with the nominees. I thought everybody who won certainly deserved it. Yeah, sure, I probably would have liked to see a movie like West Side Story maybe take home a couple more awards, just because I really, really enjoyed that film, and I generally think it was one of the best films that came out last year. Other than that, that's really it. A lot of people are talking about the fact that Will Smith still won his award, and we'll get into that. But before I get into the whole Will Smith situation, because that's pretty much the only thing that everybody's talking about from the Oscars, I'm just going to go over the winners just in case you didn't really have the time to watch, and I'll just go over the sort of heavy hitters. Best Picture was Coda. Coda won a lot of awards and certainly deserved it. Best Actor, Will Smith, King Richard. Best Actress, Jessica Chastain for The Eyes of Tammy Faye. Best Supporting Actor, Troy Kotsur from Coda. He was the father in the film who was deaf. He gave an incredibly emotional speech, all in sign language. So that was very nice to see. Best Supporting Actress, Ariana DeBose from West Side Story. That was nice to see. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't think she was gonna win. I know she was nominated, and I'm certainly glad she was. I honestly think Kristen Dunst was gonna win it, and she was probably my pick for when it comes to Best Supporting Actress. I was hoping West Side Story would win Best Picture. Either that or Power of the Dog. Those are the two that I wanted to, well, one or the other. Those are one of the two that I would have liked to see win Best Picture. But Coda certainly deserved it. No real complaints there. Anyways, Best Original Screenplay went to Belfast. I haven't watched Belfast, so I'm not too sure how good that film is. Best Adapted Screenplay, Coda. Visual Effects. Now, this is pretty cool and interesting as well. Visual Effects, Dune. Best Original Score, Dune, Hans Zimmer. Best Cinematography, Greg Fraser for Dune, who also was the cinematographer for The Batman. Dune then continued on to win Best Film Editing, Best Production Design, and Best Sound. But here's the interesting part, though. It got all those awards and other nominations as well. But Denis Villeneuve, the director for films like Prisoners, films like Arrival, Blade Runner 2049, he's an incredibly talented director. He's a visionary. He's a genius. He didn't get a nomination for Best Director, which I think is pretty interesting considering the film took home 6 awards. That's, I don't know about that one, but anyway, so those are just the winners for, the main awards that most people care about. But let's talk about the Will Smith situation. First of all, it was wrong, right? I've seen some people on the internet try and, I don't know if I'd say defend him, but sort of create excuses as to why he did it, right? There's no excuse. He shouldn't have walked up on stage and slapped Chris Rock. There's no reason for it. That's not how you live in a society, right? You're going to come across a lot of people in life that'll say things to you that you don't like, right? People are going to call you names. People are going to say this and that. These are like basic fundamental societal rules that you learn as like a child in kindergarten, right? Like you are told and you learn from a very young age that you cannot hit people. Violence is not tolerated, and there are rules and consequences for those who decide to break the societal rules of violence, right? That's why there's prisons. You know what I'm saying? That's why people get charged. And certainly, if Chris Rock decided to move forward and press charges, we know that he decided not to do that. But if he decided to do it, I don't think, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I would completely understand. As for why he didn't decide to do that, I'm not too sure. That's sort of his decision. But yeah, there's really no way to sort of slice this. He straight up shouldn't have done that. Now, sure, everybody has made mistakes. Everybody has, done things in their lives that they regret. They've acted very quickly in certain situations, whether they say something or, in this case, they hopefully not. But people have gotten in fights before and whatnot. So we've all sort of, been in moments where we were reactionary to the circumstance and we acted out of character for who we normally are, right? We've all done that. We've all had our worst day. But this is different. This is during this was during a ceremony that celebrates film, right? There's no place for violence unless you're a professional fighter in the UFC. Other than that, there's no place for violence. And this was just, there's no way to justify this at all. Like I said, I've seen lots of people saying, like, he was standing up for his wife, right? Like, there's lots of other ways you could stand up for your wife. There was other ways he could have handled the situation. I'm not trying to say Chris Rock's joke was, okay. Like, sure, it probably was a little bit insensitive, but, at the end of the day, the guy is a comedian, right? This is what he does. And Will Smith should just know better. I'm sure a lot of you probably already know this, but if you watch the clip, Will Smith actually looked like he was laughing at the joke, right? It wasn't up until he saw his wife's reaction that he then decided to take the stage and, hit Chris Rock. So it's just really a fucked up situation, to be quite honest with you. And it totally just overshadowed the whole Oscars. Like, even for me, I haven't really talked about any of the award winners with anyone. Like, every person I've discussed the Oscars with, the first thing somebody talks about or says is the Will Smith situation. And how can you not? How can you not talk about that, right? It was like, it's just such a, like, absurd thing. Right? And I watched this whole thing live. I was doing homework while I was watching the Oscars. And I remember I was sitting there. It already kind of caught me off guard to see Will Smith just walk up on stage. I did think at first it was staged. Even the slap, I thought that was part of a bit or something to, spark some engagement, because we do know that the Oscars viewership has been declining over these years. So I thought this was, at first I thought it was some sort of drastic, form of like role play to sort of get everyone excited. I don't know. But then once I saw Will Smith sit down, he continued to yell things. And for my television that I was watching from, they actually just cut his audio, so you couldn't even hear what he was saying. And then furthermore, once I saw Chris Rock's reaction, the dude looked stunned, right? And anybody would be stunned. Like, how do you proceed moving forward? And I think he did it the best way anybody could have in that situation. He could have easily resorted to, yelling like, hey, like, get this fucking guy out of here. Like you're just going to let him walk up on stage and hit me? Or he could have easily called for security or something, right? And it totally would have been totally justified for him to just walk off stage after and be like, fuck this, I'm not doing this anymore, right? But instead, he made kind of a joke out of it. He said, Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me, right? Totally just professional and just a humble way to approach that. I think humble's the wrong word, right? I think he handled that the best way he could have, and just props to him. Now, as for Chris Rock's joke, right? Did he know that Jada Smith had the disorder or the disease? I can't pronounce it properly. I think it's called alopecia or something. I'll look it up here. Let me see. Okay, I think it's pronounced alopecia. We'll just go with that. Did he know that Will Smith's wife, Jada Smith, did he know that she had that? Well, the answer is it doesn't matter, okay? At the end of the day, he's a comedian. Now, sure, there is a line that you cannot cross. Like, obviously, like, you wouldn't make fun of someone that's, you know, terminally ill of cancer, or like that's on their deathbed. Yeah, you obviously don't make a joke like that. But whether he knew or not, it's really inconsequential. Like, it still does not justify Will Smith going up on stage and smacking Chris Rock. It doesn't, right? There's no justification for that kind of behavior. And as for what the Oscars are going to do, there's been a lot of conflicting reports that they asked him to leave, but then there's other reports saying that the producers, said he could stay. So I'm not really sure about what happened behind the scenes shortly after the whole thing went down. But as for, disciplinary measures for the situation, I'm not too sure. I've heard a lot of rumors that there could be a suspension, as for how long, it could be anywhere from like, here's what I would do. Okay, here's what I would do. I would probably suspend him for like 5 to 6 years. Now, there's also rumors that the Academy could go pretty extreme with this and just totally expel him from ever coming back to the Oscars, and furthermore, ever being a part of the Oscars, right? So even if he's not there, if there's a film that he's nominated, like, he'll never get nominated. He'll never be a part of the Academy in any sort of capacity. And that's a pretty big deal, right? I don't know how that could affect his career in general, Will Smith. Like, will directors and actors want to work with him knowing that this sort of reputation that he's now built up from that incident, could it affect the film? Like, I don't know. That's thinking really long term. Will Smith is going to continue having a career. He's going to continue being in films. Like, he's not going to get completely canceled for that. At least I don't think so. We'll see what happens. Now, should his Oscar be taken away? I also don't think so, because there's been a lot of other Oscar winners in the past that have done really, really bad things and have said really bad things in the public eye. So if you're going to take his award away, well, then you probably need to consider taking other people's awards away if you're going to hold that same standard of disciplinary action to Will Smith. So I don't think it should be taken away. Even if the situation didn't happen, and obviously it did, just going off of the performances, like, let's just forget about this for a second. Just going off of the performances, Will Smith, I think, did deserve to win the Academy Award for Best Actor for his film, King Richard. I thought he was incredible in that performance. A lot of people are saying, oh, Andrew Garfield should have won. And I've talked about this before. I feel like a lot of the people that support Andrew Garfield and want him to win Best Actor, I feel like a lot of that comes from the fact that he's had a big year on the big screen, right? A big year on the big screen. That's funny. And more specifically, I think it's because of the Spider-Man stuff. I think people really, really liked him returning as Spider-Man. He stole the show, in my opinion, in No Way Home. So I think a lot of people, I think some of that support for him to win the award came from that. But anyways, now, since this has happened, the whole Will Smith situation, he has put out a public apology on Instagram. And I will admit, like, the apology was pretty good. He didn't beat around the bush. He directly apologized to Chris Rock. Here, I'll actually read the apology here for people that haven't actually seen it. I'm sure most of you probably have at this point. Let me see. Will Smith. Okay, so here's the apology. Violence in all of its forms is poisonous and destructive. My behavior at last night's Academy Awards was unacceptable and inexcusable. Jokes at my expense are a part of the job. That's true. But a joke about Jada's medical condition was too much for me to bear, and I reacted emotionally. I would like to publicly apologize to you, Chris. I was out of line and I was wrong. I am embarrassed, and my actions are not indicative of the man I want to be. There is no place for violence in a world of love and kindness. I would also like to apologize to the Academy, the producers of the show, all the attendees, and everyone watching around the world. I would like to apologize to the Williams family and my King Richard family. I deeply regret that my behavior has stained what has been an otherwise gorgeous journey for all of us. I am a work in progress. Sincerely, Will. So to me, at least, just in my opinion, in my perspective, I think that was a pretty good apology. But it doesn't stop there. He's certainly going to have to do more, I think, to, not fix what he's done, because the footage is going to be out there forever. He slapped Chris Rock. Like that's never going to change. So, but I think there's still a lot more he can do. But that was a great start. I think that apology was well said. He didn't, like I said, he didn't beat around the bush. He didn't make any excuses, and he was honest and said, "Hey, like there's no place for violence. I shouldn't have done that. I am sorry, Chris." You really can't say any more than that. And he's lucky Chris Rock isn't taking further measures, involving the police. He's lucky he's not suing him, right? Because he's well within the right to do that. So yeah, that's sort of my take on the Will Smith situation. I'm curious to see what you guys think. I've spoken to a lot of people about it, and many people I've spoken to feel kind of the same way as me. So let me know what you guys think about it, and write it down in the comments below, and we'll have a conversation. But anyways, moving on, we are going to talk about Moon Knight. Moon Knight is out. I've discussed this show many, many times on this podcast, and I've expressed my excitement for it. And I've been very, very excited, but I've also built up a lot of anticipation for it. And let's get into it. Right off the bat, I was like pretty shocked with that first scene when it shows Ethan Hawke's character, who I think is the antagonist of the show. We see him crushing up a glass cup, taking the shards of that glass cup and putting it in his sandals, and then proceeds to put them on and walk. I don't know if that's part of, this sort of cult or ritual that he's sort of a part of, with the alligator, tattoo that he has. I'm not too sure. I'm also not too familiar with like the deep lore of Moon Knight, but as someone who isn't very familiar with the show, I thought this first episode was really, really good overall. I really, really liked the approach they took to his mental health. I thought it was really, upsetting when you see Steven, the personality that we're introduced with in the beginning of the show. We see him going for his date, right? Oh, sorry. Before I continue, I'm going to be talking spoilers. I'm going to be talking spoilers. So just that's your warning. But anyways, when we see Steven try and go for his date, he thinks that it's Friday, but because he's sort of out of the loop because of, the dissociative identity disorder that he has, we see that he missed his date by 2 days. And he calls the girl and he says, "Hey, like, I'm here, it's steak time." And the girl's like, "You stood me up and now you're going to call me and act like things are normal? It's Sunday." But we could see that it's not like he didn't mean to do that, right? These are the effects that his mental health and his condition has caused him, to be, right? Like, it's not like he was trying to be a dick or trying to be some asshole. It's just like he wanted to be there, but because he's not really in the most healthy condition, he unfortunately missed it, right? What else can I say here? One of the most interesting things about the episode was we could tell when he's transitioned personalities, because we see Steven wake up in these random areas, these random sort of towns. Like, we see him wake up on that sort of field in this northern European looking community, and his like jaw is, popped out of place and people are shooting at him. And I think that's a really, really interesting part of the show. It's like, Steven thinks he has a sleeping disorder, but the reality is that he has other personalities that are taking over in the middle of the night, and that's why they're leaving, and that's why he thinks he's sleepwalking. That's why he attaches that sort of chain or leash to his ankle, and then we see the sand. Am I the only one that noticed the sand kind of resembled, a moon? I'm sure that was on purpose, but so the interesting thing is that he doesn't know that A, he has other personality. Well, at least I don't think he knows that. And then B, these other personalities, one of them being Mark Spector, he's a mercenary and he's clearly, gotten himself involved in some trouble with some of the wrong people, and they're coming after him. But when he's Steven, he has no idea what's going on. He's like, why are these people trying to kill me? Right? I'm just an innocent guy that works at a gift shop. So that it was pretty interesting, and I'm glad they didn't just show us Moon Knight right away. I really, really liked how they introduced him towards the end of the episode. So those are overall just kind of like my thoughts. I really like this first episode, but I don't think it was better than, the first episode of Loki. I think it was better than the first episode of WandaVision. And I'm really excited to see where this show goes. I really like the mystery aspect to it. It's sort of a different way of storytelling because obviously now you have almost other characters that you have to sort of, explain and show their perspective being the other personality. So I can't wait till we fully see like Moon Knight, and I think we're going to see more of him in that second episode. I also imagine the second episode is probably going to really kind of make that Steven identity understand like, oh, I have other personalities. I think one of them is Mark Spector, and I think the other is Jake something. I can't quite remember, but yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see where they continue. And as each episode comes out, we're going to cover it each week and whatnot. Now, topic number 3, we got Morbius. I just saw Morbius yesterday, and this film has just been in a roller coaster over the past, 3 years. The movie is supposed to come out, I think, first it was supposed to come out in 2020. Then it just kept getting delay after delay after delay. So it's been through a lot. And there's been news recently that they cut pretty much all this Spider-Man stuff out. So now, as an audience member going into the film, I kind of feel a little bit like betrayed. It's like you misled us. You put all these Spider-Man references and connections to just attract us to this character. Because let's be honest, nobody really knows who Morbius is, right? He's a pretty B-level character, I guess. So it makes sense why they put all these Spider-Man references, but what doesn't make sense is for them to just pull it all out right before the movie comes out, right? So yeah, that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth going into this film. So that definitely brought down some of the anticipation. And it just sucks because, I've talked about this on the show. I've really only been excited for, to see Morbius for the Spider-Man connections. Otherwise, I don't really give a shit about Morbius, to be quite frank with you. And the fact that they took them all out, well, that really kind of pulled down my anticipation. But I still saw the movie. I saw it with a couple of my friends. We were like, you know what? Let's just go see it. I've heard really nothing but bad things about it. So I figured maybe there's some kind of, positive, redeeming quality that could be pulled out from this film, or maybe I'll just be searching for it. And overall, here's just my general thoughts. It's not really a good movie, but it's not as bad as a lot of other people are saying it is. I don't think it's like the worst comic book movie of all time. I sincerely don't. It's definitely not one of the best, and it's definitely not even in that middle area. It's definitely one of the worst comic book movies, but it's not like the worst. Overall, I would say the movie is like I'd say it's like a 2.5 out of 5 stars. It's what's like one word I could say? It's okay. It's not terrible. It's really not good. It's just okay. It's watchable at least. It's not a movie that, I was watching yesterday. I never once considered getting up and walking away. Now there's a lot of things I don't like about it, particularly the third act. I thought the third act just felt like a cluster of, shortcuts and weird, dialogue between some of the characters. The writing in this film was kind of odd, kind of threw me out of a loop a couple of times. The first, 45 minutes of this film, I actually was kind of eating up. I thought it was interesting. There were some cheesy moments here and there. Overall, I thought Jared Leto was pretty interesting as a character. And I think overall, the idea of Morbius as a character is is interesting, right? Like it's a vampire, and you know, it's been a while since we've really seen vampires kind of be prevalent on screen. So you know, it's sort of intriguing. But yeah, the third act was just, yeah, that's where the movie kind of lost me. I was looking over to my friends, and they were all just laughing. Now let's address the post-credit scenes. They were pretty bad. And there's a couple reasons why they were really, really poor. The first one, we see, once again, spoilers. We see Aaron Toomes, the character of Vulture from Spider-Man Homecoming. We see him make a return. And we see him come into this universe, which first of all already presents a plot hole. What happened in Spider-Man No Way Home is Doctor Strange was sending the villains that came from other universes back to their universe. That's why we saw Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire fade away and go back to their universe, right? So with Michael Keaton, it doesn't really make sense because he was already in that universe with Tom Holland. So why would he be going elsewhere? That right there doesn't really make much sense. Maybe they'll provide some kind of explanation in the future films. So that's just the first thing. And then we see him, and he's like, you know, I hope the food's better in this joint. So, you know, whatever. And then we see that because he's really unfamiliar by people. Well, actually, nobody really knows him in this universe. He's pretty much like a new person that just dropped into this place. So because of that, nobody knows his crimes, and technically he hasn't committed any crimes in this universe. So they let him out. They let him loose. So that's it for the first post-credit scene. Then we see him in the second one. And then we see Morbius driving a nice car or whatever. And he's going to meet Vulture. And then Vulture approaches, and, you know, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, hey, you know, I think I'm here because of Spider-Man. You know, I think we should team up. You know, we should get together and, you know, do some good and whatever, right? Right then and there, that was already just straightforward. You think a guy that's coming into this universe would probably want to, like, get himself established, find a place to stay, right? We know he had a family. We know that his daughter was, you know, with Peter in the first, well, not with Peter, but like they went to, you know, homecoming and stuff like that. So you don't think he would try and like find his wife and his kids, make sure they're okay. Instead, he's just like, I gotta stop Spider-Man, right? It just, I don't know. Doesn't really make much sense. Then again, it is, you know, a fictitious story. So I don't want to look too deep into that. But then, yeah. And then he's like, you know, I think we should really team up and whatever. And then Morbius is, all he says is intriguing. It's like, does Morbius even know who Spider-Man is? Right? Like, what is the motivation for Jared Leto? Like, we know the motivation for Michael Keaton, at least, right? We know that. But what's the motivation for Morbius? Morbius should have been like, yo, who the fuck is Spider-Man? And who are you? You know what I mean? Like, instead, he's just like, oh, that's intriguing. Like, I don't know. It's totally out of place for Morbius. The film built him up to be this sort of anti-hero, this guy that wants to do good, but he has this cursed, you know, demon within him, being the vampire Morbius. But we know at the end of the day, the ethics are there, the morality is there. He wants to be a hero. He wants to help people, right? We see in the beginning of the film, he has this genetic disorder that he's been fighting his whole life to cure and to help others like him. So we know that he's, at heart, he wants to be a good person. So for him to just say, like, that's intriguing, it goes against everything that they developed with his character. It almost just wipes the movie right out, or it just throws it right out the window. It just doesn't really make sense. And even for Michael Keaton, he just, like, the dialogue, and it was very just sort of like, you know, he sounded like the cliche menacing villain that we've seen, like the mustache twirling, like like it didn't even seem like his character that we've seen from the other Spider-Man films. So just the dialogue and, you know, the back and forth between them and just everything about it really just didn't make sense for either of the characters, but especially for Morbius. So yeah, just to kind of go over, summarize my thoughts again. I was sort of enjoying the first half an hour, 45 minutes of this film. The third act lost me, and the post-credit scenes were not very good. I wouldn't say it's the worst comic book film of all time, but it's definitely the worst post-credit scenes of all time. And the thing is, like, the post-credit scenes on paper, because I'm not going to lie, I saw the leaks and I was aware of what happens in the post-credit scenes before I watched the film, so I knew what was going to happen. On paper, it sounded interesting. And I think with a different approach, they could have been really exciting post-credit scenes, but I think the approach and just everything about it was just done the wrong way. But anyways, that's my thoughts on Morbius, and let me know what you guys think, if you've seen the film at all. Moving on, we're going to discuss the new deleted scene that's just been released from the Batman. And for those of you who haven't seen the scene, just kind of like a little description of it. It was cut from the film, but it was supposed to be the Batman going to see the Joker in Arkham Asylum and just trying to basically see if he can get some insight onto how, you know, the Riddler thinks by talking to another serial killer, being the Joker. Very similar to Silence of the Lambs, with Clarice going to visit Hannibal Lecter. Very, very reminiscent of that. And it gave us really our first look at the Joker. We obviously had that one scene in the film when he's speaking from his cell to the Riddler, but we didn't really get to see an actual look at his face. And even in this scene, they intentionally blur out, you know, the window, so you can't actually really see his face up until that final shot where the camera starts at his eyes and it pans down, slowly showing his whole face. But this is really our first look at the Joker for, you know, 4 or 5 minutes. It was a pretty long deleted scene, and I'll be honest, I fucking loved it. I thought it was great, but I understand why they took it out, and I think they, you know, I still think that the scene should have been taken out of the film, but I loved it. I loved it, and it's such a promising sign at what's to come in the future, because we do know that this Joker will return. I don't think he's going to be the villain of the second film, but I think he's definitely going to be the villain of the third, and I think that would be a great way to end this trilogy, unless they decide to continue making more films after. I'm not too sure, but you know, by Hollywood standards, usually superheroes get 3 films in their franchise, unless Thor, you know, breaking the barriers there, but we'll see. So I think they're setting him up to be the villain of the third film, but I do think we'll see him again in the second film, similar to how we saw him in this film. Just very brief, kind of continuing to plant that seed. Might even see him in the Arkham series that's coming out. But anyways, back to the scene. I thought it was great. I thought the interaction between him and Batman was perfect. The scene when the Joker asks Batman, like, do you think I get off on this stuff? And Batman's like, don't you? That just gave me chills. That made the hairs on my arm raise, gave me goosebumps. It was really, really exciting. And just as for Barry Keoghan, the actor playing the Joker, just for his performance as a Joker, I thought it was great. And I thought it's a very great sign of what's to come from that character in this version of it. I'm honestly like I'm blown away. Just off of the little bit that we've seen, I think he is going to be legendary in this role. Now, I'm not saying, you know, he's going to be better than Heath Ledger. I don't think anybody will ever top Heath Ledger's performance in The Dark Knight. I just think that was like once in a lifetime. It was just like, it was amazing. So I don't think anybody is ever going to do better than that performance, but I do think this could be better than Joaquin Phoenix's performance as Joker. And I do think that, I think it'll definitely be better than Jared Leto's take on the Joker. Although I still think Jared Leto's take is not as bad as some people say it is. It is probably one of the worst, but it's still not as bad. But I digress. I think it could be like the second best, you know, take we've seen on the Joker. But I also don't really want to do like the whole comparing thing. It's just, it kind of takes away the joy of, you know, and the appreciation of it. Let's just say, you know, I think it could be really, really good. And I really like the way they made his face look. Like, we saw scars on Heath Ledger's Joker. Like, obviously, with the, you know, he kind of explained it. We don't know the Heath Ledger's backstory entirely. That was on purpose. But he explained a couple times that, like, I took a knife in my mouth and I did this. Like, and he does the whole, I'm not going to act it out for you. But, you know, that was one sort of, take we saw, with some scars. But Barry Keoghan's Joker, his face just looks like deformed. Like there's scars everywhere. Now Matt Reeves discussed in an interview that this Joker has a sort of like genetic disease that makes it so he can't stop smiling. So I'm not sure if the scars we've seen are from him already fighting Batman, or if they've just been sort of escalated from his already genetic disorder. It almost looks like he was dropped in a vat of acid. It looks like he has burns and scars. Like if you look on it shows the clip of him touching the files that Batman sort of slid in that little compartment. We see his hands, and they look like they have like, burns and stuff. Like, when, I don't know if anybody's ever like had a burn before. It almost looks like it starts to bubble. Like, for example, when I was a kid, I went on my uncle's motorcycle and my calf touched the exhaust pipe. And as soon as it touched the exhaust pipe, it started to bubble. It started to like get that burn sort of effect. So if you visualize that in your mind, that's very much what some of Barry Keoghan's skin looked like. And also I loved the choice for the hair. I'm kind of sick of seeing a long-haired Joker. We've seen that like 3 times now. We saw that in the Zack Snyder Justice League. We saw it with that Joker. Then obviously we saw it with Joaquin and Heath Ledger. I kind of want to see a different, choice for the hair. And they really, really took that. And they made a great choice. He's like balding on certain parts of his head. And you do see the green hair. There's like certain parts of his green hair. And then, going back to the burns that I mentioned, there is one clip in the deleted scene where he sits down and you actually see a clear view of the back of his head, and there's even more cuts and burns and stuff. Like I said, I don't know if that's because of that's scars from him fighting other people or Batman just beating the shit out of him already. I'm not too sure, because we do know that this version of the Joker and Batman, we do know that they have already interacted with each other, because the first thing that the Joker says is he's like, our anniversary is almost here, right? So we know that they've already had some history between each other. But yeah, I thought it was great, and it really just got me excited to see this version of the Joker again. And I thought it was great, but like I said, I understand why they took it out, and let me just give you my reasons why, and I'm sure you've heard other people probably share my opinion. The Joker looked at this file, and within like a minute, described the rest of the film, just gave exposition on everything. So then it kind of would have made Batman look sort of like an idiot, right? It's like, they call me the world's greatest detective, but this psychopath could just read this file and go full Matt Damon Good Will Hunting and know everything in like 5 seconds. You know what I mean? Like, so that was kind of odd. Furthermore, it would have completely taken any interest the audience would have had for the Riddler, and just, it would have been overshadowed by the Joker. At least for me. I know, like, if I saw the Joker, if that scene was in the film, I would have wanted to see more Joker. And then it would have cut back to the Riddler, and I would have been like, well, I don't really give a fuck about the Riddler anymore. I want to see more Joker. So those are 2 big reasons. And going back to the first reason, he basically explained the rest of the movie. There almost would have been no point for Batman to pursue any more clues or try and find any more hints as to what could be happening, because he basically knows now because of, the description that the Joker gave. So yeah, those are the reasons why I think it was good to keep it out, and I still think that scene should have been kept out of the film. But I certainly loved it, though. I certainly loved it, and I thought it was great just to see that interaction between Batman and Joker. You could tell that they have already had history, whether Batman put him in Arkham or the cops put him in Arkham. Who knows? But I thought it was great, and I'm curious to see what you guys think about it down in the comments. So A24 is one of my like favorite publishing, producing, whatever you want to call them, companies. They've been making some incredibly great films in the horror, realm, and even other genres as well. But specifically their horror films. I'm sure many people are familiar with films like Hereditary, Midsommar, The Lighthouse, especially The Lighthouse. Everybody knows The Lighthouse is one of my favorite films of all time. It's one of the few that really inspire me to actually pursue acting. So they've made some great films, and they have another one coming out this year called Men, and they just dropped the trailer for it, and I thought I would talk about it today because I think it looks like it could be another one of those fantastic films. So the trailer dropped, and the film stars Jessie Buckley and Rory Kinnear. Rory Kinnear, if I'm not mistaken, was in, I think, the first ever episode of Black Mirror, and he plays the president in that episode where the president needs to fuck the pig to save the princess, I think. Really disturbing episode. But I'm pretty sure that's the actor, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it looks really scary, and I'm not too sure what it's about. Now, we see in the trailer that Jessie Buckley's character obviously is dealing with some trauma. It seems like her boyfriend or husband committed suicide, which is very, very tragic for anyone, of course. So it seems like there's definitely some trauma that's happened in her life, and it seems like she's still kind of, dealing with it. I mean, I think everybody just that's gone through that, I think they deal with that their whole life. I don't think it's something that just goes away, but you could definitely tell she's struggling with that. And then I don't know if this is like, I don't know if she's moving in to this new house. I just spit everywhere. I don't know if she's moving into this house that we see in the trailer, or if she's just looking after it, almost like The Shining. But anyways, we'll just say she's moving in. So she's moving into this house, or actually, I think she is looking after it, because when she gets to the house, the individual that she meets is this guy, and he almost looks like he's like the groundskeeper or something like that, or he's like responsible for this house. And he's sort of giving her the rundown on, like, what you can and can't do here in this property. So I don't actually think she's moving in. But the gentleman she meets, the actor, Rory Kinnear, we see this guy again and again and again. But it's a different person every time. We even see him as playing a child, right? So everywhere she goes, she's speaking to these men. But it's the same guy, just like redisguised as somebody else. And they're almost all coming after her. And she even explains in the trailer, like, there was a man who followed me out of this tunnel or this bridge. Because we see her, she is like standing in front of this underpass. And she sees someone on the other side of it. And that person she sees on the other side of it starts running after her. And then that just looks terrifying. But every person, or at least every male that we're seeing, is this same actor. And she's interacting with these people. So I'm not sure if this is a case of, like, this is something psychological going on within her mind, or if she's like in some kind of Twilight Zone. This literally looks like an episode of Black Mirror. Am I the only one that thinks that? I don't know. Or is this literally this same guy, masquerading as different individuals, some kind of supernatural element? I'm not too sure. But it looks really, really cool. These are the kind of movies, the sort of psychological, mind-bending thrillers. These are the movies that really attract me. I love these kind of films. So, yeah, let me know if you guys have seen the trailer for Men, another A24 film coming out very soon, and I cannot wait. And the last topic today is going to be about Chris Stuckmann. And for those of you who don't know who Chris Stuckmann is, he's a YouTuber. He reviews movies and just talks about film and things of that nature. But he's also an aspiring filmmaker. He's talked many times, if you've followed his channel, I'm sure most of you probably know who Chris Stuckmann is, but he's expressed in many of his videos that while YouTube is, he enjoys it, his true passion and calling is directing and writing and all that stuff. So behind the scenes, he's really been trying to, get into the industry, and we now know that it was reported last year that he's actually directing his first feature film. It's called Shelby Oaks. From what I know, roughly it's about these YouTubers called the Paranoid Paranoids or something. I'm not entirely sure. The Paranormal Paranoids, I think, is the name. But anyway, so he's directing a story that has to do with them. And it sounds very exciting. And the guy, I think, has a beautiful mind. If you hear him talk about films and movies, he's clearly he clearly understands. He understands it, and he's very smart, and I think he's going to kill it. Now, he started a Kickstarter to help sort of fund this film he's making. And he's talked many times how, okay, you know, the goal at first was 500K, but he didn't even think that was really possible. And then it hit 500K, and then he said, you know, guys, let's just, you know, if we could just try and get to 700K. Then it broke 700K. Well, now the Kickstarter has surpassed $1 million, and it's breaking records. It's creating history for a Kickstarter for a horror film. And first of all, you know, I'm so happy for Chris Stuckmann. Just first and foremost, not that he cares what I say. He'll probably never even see this. I'm just from a fan. I'm super happy for Chris, and I'm happy he gets to, you know, live out his dream and people are supporting him. But furthermore, I also just want to touch on just Chris Stuckmann's story in general. For those of you who don't know, he's had a pretty traumatic life from what I hear. He grew up as a Jehovah's Witness member, and you know, he talked about it. You can watch his video. He talked about it for a whole hour, and he talked about some of the tragedies that he faced growing up in that sort of you know, setting within him and his family. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but through all of that, he always wanted to direct films, and he's finally done it. He's finally manifesting it, and he's discussed many times how no one has ever believed in him, and he's just proving them wrong. And it was just, you know, tinder for his fire to really just kind of just put his head down and just grind and pursue this career in this very tough industry. And it really hits home for me because I've discussed on this channel how I want to be an actor, and I haven't done anything yet in this space. I'm still learning. I'm still, you know, I'm going to be applying to schools soon to go to film school to learn how to act and all that. And but I've always wanted to be an actor, and the reason why his story inspires me is because now he's actually living out that dream. He's actually working. He's directing a film, and that's so incredible. And I'm so happy for him. And it inspires me because, you know, to this day, there's people in my life, particularly in my family, you know, not to throw them under the bus, but there's people in my family that just don't believe in me and don't believe in what I'm doing. And I'm not trying to sit here and, you know, cry for pity and sympathy or whatever. It actually just inspires me. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that can probably relate to what I'm talking about. I have friends, I'm sure, that probably don't, you know, believe in what I'm doing. But yeah, I like I said, I have family members that just aren't confident in you know, me being an actor and whatnot, and you know, and a lot of it comes from, you know, a place of love, I'm sure, but still, like, it can be very discouraging to a lot of people, and to a certain degree it is discouraging to me, but it also motivates me. It makes me want to prove to people that, like, I can do this, you know what I mean? And I just, basically the message of you know, the point I'm trying to say is, like, to anybody out there that whatever you want to do, like, you know, just go for it. Like, don't worry about what other people have to say. And I'm speaking as if, like, I've done it, I've made it. No, I'm still in the trenches. I'm still in the process of it myself. I haven't done shit, you know what I mean? So I still got a long ass way to go. But to anybody, you know, like me in that regard, that really wants to pursue something in their life, whether it's, you know, creative or anything, I don't know. Just don't listen to anybody else, and just listen to your inner compass, right? That is what's going to guide you. You have to be able to have this undoubtfulness in yourself that, like, I can do this and nobody else is going to convince me otherwise, right? Like, you have to really follow that, your intuition. And it's going to be tough. And I know it's going to be tough. I haven't even broke into any of the, you know, I haven't really faced any real challenges in my pursuit to being an actor yet, because I know they're going to come. I know it's going to be hard as fuck. And to be honest with you, I may not even be successful as an actor, right? That's always a possibility. I don't want to think like that. But the thing that I don't want to happen in my life is I don't want to be 67 years old and be bitter and be miserable, just thinking, you know, oh, I listened to other people and, you know, I got this job, I did this, I did what people told me I should do, right? A lot of people will think they know what's best for you, but only you really know what's best for you. And instead of pursuing what I wanted to do, I pursued what other people thought was meaningful instead of listening to myself. So, not to get too serious here and all that, or, get all preachy, motivational. That's not what I'm trying to do here, because there's you can find a lot of content like that from people that'll just blur out bullshit about, just do it, just whatever. I'm not trying to do that. What I'm trying to say is Chris Stuckmann's story is incredibly inspiring to me, because we see that this guy has been through hell. He's been through the terrain, and he's come out on top. And I'm sure he's probably not satisfied either. I'm sure if you ask him, he's probably got so much more he wants to accomplish. But he's finally sort of broken this wall, right? And he's talked about how through this, exposure and through this engagement that his story is getting with this whole Kickstarter campaign, it's attracted a lot of attention to him from big studios. He didn't name them, but like, that's just so exciting. And hopefully with my journey, I could be successful in the space and just, I said prove to other people, but really just prove to myself, right? That this is something that I can do. It's not just a pipe dream, right? But anyways, I'll keep it there. I don't want to ramble on about this. That's just sort of, TED Talk, if you will. I don't fucking know. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. That's going to wrap up today's episode of Unbashful. And yeah, I will see you on episode 25.